stranded in space. Commander Barry Butch Wilmore and pilot Sunita Sunny Williams went to the International Space Station last June for an 8-day mission. Their capsule suffered technical problems, and as it's taken all this time to arrange a safe return, so they're still on board. But NASA has now confirmed they'll be bringing them home later this month, which will surely be a relief for the pair. Or will it? Might they miss floating gently above the Earth? A short while ago, I was lucky enough to meet Jasmine Moghbeli on a mock-up of the ISS at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston after her return from a 6-month stint in space. How does it feel after a long mission? What do you go through?
I spent half a year in this environment, but weightless. And so your neurovestibular system is off. We work out every day up there, so our strong muscle groups are very strong, but it's all the little muscles you don't realize you use on a daily basis down here. So when you first get back, you can barely stand straight. If you get off at all, your center of gravity, you feel like you're just gonna fall over. You're very unstable and wobbly. But we work with trainers 45 days for 2 hours every single day when we get back to get physically back in shape.
Is working as strange now as the floating was in this space?
Oh, floating never got old. I dreamed a lot about flying and floating as a kid, and so I got to live that for 6 months. It never got old. I loved it every single day.
What blew your mind first when you were up there?
Launch, you take off, and it was very smooth, smoother than I expected on the first stage. Then the second stage is like rumbly and a very slow build to use. But then when that cuts out, that's when you're just weightless and floating. And at first we're strapped in. But when I first got the chance to unstrap and look out the window back at Earth, it is just such a unique way to see our planet. And then the other thing was when I first got to space station and we docked back there on the top of the space station, and I was so confused and disoriented. I remember thinking, like, I've trained so many hundreds of hours right here at Johnson Space Center in these mock-ups, but when you see something from a different angle, it looks totally different.
You were the commander of the space station. What's tougher up there? Keeping your crew in line or keeping your coffee in your cup?
I was very lucky. My crew and I got along extremely well. But honestly, for me, one of the hardest things was that other things floating. You lose focus for 5 seconds in space and something floats off and you could cost yourself an hour or 2.
And you lost a toolbox in this space.
Yes, during our spacewalk, and a spacewalk for an astronaut, that's like the epitome of being an astronaut, something you train for so long. I had the tool bag and tethered it to a handrail to go to work on a camera unit. And unfortunately, it wasn't there when I turned around.
No aliens involved in
well, I hope not. I don't think so.
Artemis project aims to put a female astronaut and a non-white. You are part of the project. You could be one of them. Yeah, I can see that you get emotional.
Absolutely.
What would that moment mean to you and to humankind?
When I was up here on the space stations, and I remember thinking, like, we built this incredible thing in space, this orbiting laboratory, and every day that filled me with so much hope for what we can do and work together. And I think, like, going on like the Artemis missions, then carrying that on to take us even further onto another planet and onto Mars, like, to me, it just like fills me with so much hope. And to be a part of that at all, whether I'm the person putting the boots on the moon or just, here helping set us up for that, and knowing I'll know the person who's doing that, it's just surreal, I think.
In 1991, a fresh-faced boy turned up at the Cambridge University Computer Lab with a passion for programming and a disastrous dress sense. That was the beginning of the journey that eventually led him to Click, and the 22 years of adventures that followed. So what better time than my 1000th programme to go back and see how things have changed. And boy, have they changed. As technology has expanded into all parts of our lives, so has the research being done here. The question is, will any of it change the world like some of the department's previous breakthroughs?
For example, this is the world's very first webcam. Now, it was first connected to the web in 1993 and it had one very important purpose. It gave a live update on whether the coffee pot, several floors down, had any coffee in it.
I can't think of anything more vital. These days, webcams are giving robots eyes on the real world, although it's taken recent advances in artificial intelligence to make sense of what they see. And that means, for example, that these robots can work together in a pack, following the lead car as I steer it recklessly down the corridor.
Ordinarily, this is a really complicated task, and each robot would need loads of sensors all the way around it so it could see where every other bot was. These things, however, only have one cheap forward-facing camera each, and they've been trained to work out where all their buddies are, even if they can't see them.
Instead of one computer trying to coordinate all of these robots, researchers in this lab have distributed the processing, and the machines behave, well, more like a cooperative flock of birds.
So it's basically, I'm allowing the robots to use their own brains, but we're giving them the capabilities to work with the robots around them. So giving the robots that capability really allows you to do amazing things with robots as a team.
This is kind of like a hive mind kind of thing.
Yes, in a certain sense, yes.
Meanwhile, the robots in this lab are more interested in the humans in the room.
Could you share a positive memory with me from the last week or so?
I went to my daughter's birthday party where I saw both my kids rock climbing, and they got...
My research is about how robots could be used to support people's mental well-being.
A sophisticated AI chatbot on the inside, sure, but, well, on the outside it does look a bit like a toy, doesn't it? Actually though, Minya's study found that adults actually preferred talking to something that didn't look too human.
I think maybe part of the strength is almost that you don't have to take it too seriously, that you can kind of approach it in a more playful manner. And then once you get into the interaction, then you actually might realize that, oh, this is kind of helpful. But it doesn't have to be so serious. It can be kind of a casual way to approach your own mental well-being.
It's fascinating to see how much AI is being used across the department. Mental health in one lab, physical health in another. Although whose idea was it to put me in the running shoes?
The important thing, though, is not what's going on down there, but what's going on in here. Now, these are research versions of bulk standard earbuds, so you can listen to music and take phone calls on them. But at the moment, the inbuilt microphone is listening to my heartbeat.
Scientists here are looking at whether snugly fitting earbuds might give more reliable readings than fitness trackers that bounce around on your arms as you run.
So the head itself is quite stable, so when you move, the head moves around a lot less than like the arms, for example, so that inherently makes it a better location for sensing. So in addition to heart rate and breathing rate, there are other things that we think we can detect. So for example, we think that you can detect the presence of arrhythmias. We have shown through our work that you can also look at factors related to walking and running, so related to your gait. And yeah, we think there's probably quite a lot that you can hear because no one else has ever tried to hear it before.
In order to clean up the audio and make sense of what the device is hearing, the team are using, yep, artificial intelligence. Look, every so often we reach a tipping point in a certain technology where many, many new things suddenly become possible. And it does feel like we are reaching one of those milestones now. AI is starting to change the world, and the next generation will be both using it as a tool and facing the consequences of it getting better and better at the tasks that we once thought were uniquely human. I wonder how different their world will be to that of the early 21st century, when I first welcomed you all to Click 1,000 programs ago.
But that is it from me on Click. It has been such a privilege to see the things that I've seen and bring those stories to you. I have had the time of my life, and I hope you've enjoyed the ride too. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.